Hi, I'm Liron Cohen.
And I'm Mimi Torchin.
And you're listening to Lady Parts TV, the podcast.
Whee!
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
We know these are very disturbing times, and we see our job, partly at least, as to give you a little bit of distraction sometimes from real life, and sometimes give you tools to reflect on real life. We try to do both, and so we're going to give you lots to do in this podcast and lots to see, okay? So we're, in case you didn't know, we're Jewish. And as Jewish women, I feel that we should have known last time when we over-celebrated our stats that we were going to ruin it for ourselves. This time
we're very superstitious and we're always spitting on our fingers and trying to get rid of the evil eye as soon as we say anything positive that has to do with our lives.
A Jewish grandmother would never tell you that you have a pretty face. She would say you have an ugly face because she doesn't want to call the evil spirits to make you ugly if she says you're pretty.
Yes, my grandparents didn't do that, but then they weren't from the old country. Well, they were, actually.
I guess there are degrees of Judaism. Anyway, we tallied 12 primetime shows, out of which 3 were written or co-written by a woman, which is 25%, and 1, which is 8%, was directed by a woman.
There are mitigating circumstances to this.
The majority of these shows that we tallied were actually episodes of the same show that were all written and directed by the same 2 men, and so we'll tell you about it actually because that fact notwithstanding, we're still recommending it.
Yes.
But we'll get to that in a little bit. Now, when I said we're going to give you recommendations of what to watch, good things to watch to kind of take your mind off a little bit sometimes, and this is still Pride Month, and we don't want to overlook that. Well, it's
because of what's going on.
There are more important things right now, and I think that ultimately all of our goals are to advance equality and tolerance, and so we're all in this together, and it's not contradicting in any way.
No, it isn't.
And in fact, and this is a good place to remind people that the majority of trans people who get killed every year are people of color. Mm-hmm. And so, again, there's a lot of parallels and a lot of we should all join together, and we
should anyway all join together.
And this is what it's all about. But the next movie we're going to tell you about is not one of those movies that you should be watching.
No.
And I'm sorry, we don't usually, it's usually when we get something that we don't like, we say, if we would review this, it would be a disrecommendation. So maybe we should just drop it because we really don't like to give bad reviews. We always find something to appreciate. I
always did that as a critic. Yeah. Yes, I could pan something, but nevertheless, I could find something positive to say about it.
And we appreciate the effort, and we appreciate the fact that we know how hard it is, what hard work it is, and how creativity, is something that many people can interpret in different ways. And if we didn't like something, that doesn't mean that everybody's not going to like it. It's very rare that we actually feel that it's our service to our community to tell you that something is bad. And this is bad.
It's bad.
It's just bad. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to find something to...
It didn't start off too bad, but then it went... And I'll tell... Well, there are many reasons why it's bad. That's the other thing. There are many reasons.
Let's get on with it.
Right. So this movie is called Tell Me I Love You. It's already been released on VOD and DVD, and it's written and directed by Fiona McKenzie, starring, and I'm sorry, I am going to probably mispronounce this name, Kanihietia. Wait, it's Kanihietia?
No, it's
Kanihietia.
Kanihietia.
Horn. That's her last name. Paulina Cerilla, Renee Morrison, Sam Clark, Jamie Lunar, and some other very non-important characters. And this time I have to read you the description that the filmmakers or PR people wrote about this movie because I found it to be extremely misleading. So I want to tell you what they say. They say, Tell Me I Love You is a sexy romantic comedy revolving around three young bandmates, straight, gay, and fluid, living together as a musical tribe in a borrowed beach house in Malibu. As they work tirelessly to record their first album and catch a break in the cutthroat music industry, something very unexpected happens, life-altering true love. Who commits to whom is the ultimate question. Now,
well, that part might be true.
Well, that part might be true. The part that is extremely misleading is straight, gay, and fluid.
Okay.
There is a lesbian couple.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a three
character.
Right. It centers around these three people, two girls and a boy, two young women and a man, who are bandmates.
They're grown-ups.
Right. I mean, they're in their early 20s,
mm-hmm.
They're bandmates, and they're trying to make it in the music industry, just like the description says. Now, as the movie started, since we saw straight, gay, and fluid, we obviously tried to immediately figure out who is who.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the girls talks about dating both men and women, and she ends up with another woman, Renee Morrison, who's lovely.
Lovely.
So their story is sweet. It's actually cute. They have good chemistry. They're both attractive. It's very nice. And it's nice to see the girl who then we attributed her to the fluid.
The fluid, right.
Because if she dates both, then she can't be the gay or the straight. She's the fluid one. And I found it very nice that she ended up with a woman because oftentimes the bisexuals, it's easier to put them with a man. And so then we said, okay, so is the boy gay and the girl straight or the other way around? And we kept trying. Guess what?
They're both straight.
They're into each other.
Yes.
So,
but they didn't even know they were into each other.
Well, they were exes.
Oh,
and
exes,
then they broke up.
Right, I'd already forgotten.
And so there was
that.
this tension between them of do they still want to be together? And so, and their story is the main story, and the whole story is about. Well, I'm not even going to get into it.
It has to do with inheritance.
It has to do with a double wedding, a double straight wedding, I should say.
But it's really more of a when you get married to two people. What's that called?
Polygamy.
Well, polygamy and
I mean, the thing
and
is,
I don't even know if any of those marriages were real.
The thing is, the movie is really bad. I'm sorry. The acting is okay.
Yes, the acting is fine. They're attractive kids. Yeah.
It's shot in Malibu, even though I find it to be very blasted. It's
every time they went outside, it practically was white.
Yeah. It
was so blasted.
It was weird. I mean, Malibu as it is,
so we couldn't
pretty
say
saturated.
Much even about the
cinematography. Yeah. The peripheral characters, the supporting characters, every single one of them was a cliche of some community that they were representing.
Ethnic community.
Right.
Such a cliche. Especially the Jews.
Especially the Jews,
God.
which always bothers me because it's so hard to find Jewish people just being Jewish people without having... I mean, you can play off some, especially if it's a comedy, some of the stereotypes, but you don't have to make them just ludicrous.
Every single one.
And the comedy, and I do comedy in quote... the comedy sections were really farce. They were silly. They were over the top. They were not funny. And
I didn't even know what was going on half the time.
Yeah, half the time.
I wasn't quite sure what the heck was happening.
Yeah. It was just bad. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
Again,
we're so sorry.
I appreciate the effort, but I just felt that this was not good. And sometimes you see movies that are not very good, but they're trying to serve the community. I didn't feel this one did that.
And we watched it all the way to the end. If it wasn't something that we had promised to review, we would have left it after 15 minutes.
Well, I kind of feel bad because I actually asked to review it. I saw them to ask to review it.
You asked them for a
because
copy.
I see a potentially LGBT movie. I immediately want to review it. This is our community. This is and I was all there wanting to support
me
it,
too.
But I just felt that it was just really bad.
It was
I'm
sort
sorry.
of insupportable.
Yeah, I'm
now,
so sorry.
Now, that doesn't mean
some of you
might not enjoy it.
Or some of you might even think that just for the, cumulative 15 minutes that the lesbians have together, and they are a nice couple.
Darling.
Some might think that is sufficient to make you interested.
Yes, they're all attractive. They're all cute.
It's just a really bad movie. It's a really bad movie. I'm sorry. And this is Tell Me I Love You on VOD and DVD right now.
At least you don't have to leave your house if you want to see it.
Right.
All right. Here's another new movie review called Shirley. Shirley, well, I'll tell you first. It was directed by Josephine Decker and written by Sarah Gubbins. So once again, female, which is wonderful.
It is available as of today on digital everywhere.
It stars Elizabeth Moss, Odessa Young, Michael Stuhlbarg, Logan Lerman, and a few others, but mostly
it's pretty much
it's pretty much a very four-handed film.
Especially a two-handed film.
Especially a two-handed film.
You know what I love? I love that even without intending, every single thing that we're reviewing today has a lesbian in it.
Well, hallelujah.
Isn't it amazing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Although...
Or lesbian undertones,
because I don't know that there's...
Oh, but this is very lesbian undertones.
Anyway, first of all, Shirley is Shirley Jackson, the great, great horror writer who wrote The Lottery, among other things. We've Always Lived in the Castle, The House...
Oh, The Haunting of... That's what I meant. The Haunting of
Hill House.
Yeah.
Yes,
sorry. Which was also a Netflix series, wasn't it?
It was also a great movie, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Elizabeth Moss plays Shirley Jackson, who is someone you don't want to know. Really intriguing. She's married to... they're both... her husband is a faculty
professor.
member at somewhere in Vermont, a well-known college in Vermont. But... and he both criticizes her and supports her talents. I think he's very jealous, really, of her genius. But he's a critic, and he's a teacher, and he's a philanderer, and he's all those things that men in academics tend to be.
Apparently. Who knew that they were lived such a crazy life?
If you know her work, you wouldn't be surprised to find out that she's a little bit on the weird side, okay? And she's not a nice woman. She's demanding, and she's morose, and she's just not someone...
She's also agoraphobic, by the way.
She's agoraphobic, yes. She's not someone you really want to spend a lot of time with in the beginning.
Quite antisocial.
Yeah. And I think that Elizabeth Moss does a good job with her, but I did find that it was a very stilted performance. Maybe this is the way she interpreted this New England woman. I don't know. But it was very stilted. She didn't seem like a real person to me. She seemed like a character. And also Elizabeth Moss, who I like very much, and God knows she's a fantastic actress. She, as many actresses who you start to see a lot, has tics, a certain set of the mouth, a stare with a little bit of a smile
that
lets you know that something's coming, you know, and it ain't going to be good for you. And she does a lot of her Offred-y things here, but Offred is likable, and this woman is not. Oh, yes, June. June. But she's fascinating. I have to say she's fascinating.
Let's tell them the story.
Okay, so this a young professor and his wife come to work for he's going to be like a teaching assistant with the professor, and she's going to school. It must be something like Bennington, this
doesn't matter.
School. It sort of matters to me. I don't know why. They don't have any place to live at first, so they move in with the professor and Shirley. And therein things ensue. Shirley is not nice to them. She immediately announces that the girl is pregnant. She says, and the girl hasn't even told her husband that. So you see that Shirley has some sort of special powers of observation, some clairvoyance, yes. And there's immediate tension between everybody. But Shirley she's sort of having a writer's block right now, and her husband is always nudging her about her new book. Her new book is probably how they make most of their money. I mean, if they are academics, they don't make that much money. And all of a sudden, Shirley sort of starts being nice to this girl, who's very nice to her. It turns out their housekeeper has quit, and so they say, if you just wouldn't mind picking up a little bit of the slack to the young woman. Anyway, time goes on, things get very involved, and all of a sudden these lesbian undertones between Shirley.
Undertones that become overtones.
Yeah. Shirley and Rose.
I mean, we didn't know anything about that part. It was a very, very nice surprise. And actually, the movie starts off because it's so weird, because also it's shot so weird.
Yes, I love the way it's shot, actually.
But it's
creepy.
It's very disturbing. And the first half of the movie, it kind of makes you very uncomfortable.
Yeah, you feel very uncomfortable. Especially because I didn't really like it.
But I was just hanging out with her felt.
I felt dirty. I felt like I needed to take a shower.
And also, it's like
a lot of smoking. A lot of
it reminds me of when I watched
dirty hair.
At some point when I was binging on Mad Men, and I just physically felt ill, because when you see people abusing their body over and over again, it kind of makes you feel ill.
Yes, the same with drinking, like when you see.
But halfway in, especially when the lesbian things started to become more apparent,
quite interesting.
Yes, the relationship between them,
especially the women who are very interested. The men are negligible as far as I'm concerned. They're not very interesting.
But especially
not always, Lebron. Sometimes I find the men very interesting, as in another thing we're going to talk about.
That's right.
But in this, they're neither likable nor interesting.
Now, they left the ending a little ambiguous, which usually I don't like, but in this case, I understand it was part of their message. And I think that the message is, and I don't think telling you will hurt your experience of the movie, is that women, even though in this case, yes, Shirley Jackson cares more about her work than anything else, and it does become more apparent with time.
She's a user, yes.
Right. But still, the fact that women, and this was taking place quite a few decades ago.
Yeah.
But women benefit
50s or 60s.
Right. And that women, especially
40s or 50s.
Especially at that time when women's lives were very restricted, how much they benefited from spending time with other women, and in those relationships, oftentimes they found that they could be more than what society told them they could be. However, because they were still limited to what society told them they had to be, oftentimes that led to madness and to neuroses and all sorts of things. And in that way, I think the movie especially was very interesting. So even though at first I was kind of
put off by it.
Yeah, eventually I really came to appreciate it. We both felt haunted by it.
We were very, very haunted by it. I thought about it for days and days and days afterwards. It lingered with me.
Yeah.
It sort of colored my mood a little bit, which is too bad. But it was... I definitely think it's worth watching.
Yes, recommend
it. It's a very interesting film, and Shirley Jackson was a great writer, and to sort of find out about her, I think, is enriching as far as the experience of her work.
Yeah, and the lesbian relationship, or the relationship between them with the lesbian subtext, was very interesting to watch.
Very interesting to watch,
so
especially as a lesbian.
Yes. Shirley is available everywhere as of today, so go watch. I want to say, by the way, that I really admire and appreciate those studios that decided to release their movies digitally and not wait. And I really urge you to support them. And, paying to watch something on VOD is minuscule amount compared to how much you would pay to go watch in the movie theater.
And you can watch in your bed.
Exactly. So, and really, these people are providing you content at a time when they could have held off. They could have waited and, because a lot of studios don't think it's as prestigious to release it on VOD.
They don't make as much money either.
Yep. So do show them that it's a good idea right now to do that. And another movie that actually was supposed to, I think, come out, but because of the situation came out otherwise, and it is on Showtime, available right now, Showtime anytime. It's called Before You Know It.
I think that this movie probably is where it belongs.
Yes, but I'm not sure that that's how they intended to release it originally, but I definitely think that this is a good platform for it. It's called Before You Know It, and it reminded us a lot of Kissing Jessica Stein.
It did. There was a certain tone to it, a certain way it was shot.
Not because of anything lesbian.
No, nothing.
Even though one of the main characters is a lesbian, but it's an afterthought. Yes.
But there was something fast and New Yorky and smart.
It also reminded me a little bit of Romeo and Michelle in that it's, to me, when I see it, because it was directed by Hannah Pearl Utt, it was written by her and Jen Tulloch, and they're both starring in it. And I remember the story of Romeo and Michelle was, is that what the movie was called, right? Romeo and
Michelle Something Adventure.
Something. And I remember that the story behind that movie was that these two girls were in an acting course, And there was nothing there for them. There were no scenes for them to do. There was nothing for two women to do together, and they decided to just make their own movie.
That's how Jessica Stein. Jessica Stein, it started off as an acting exercise.
Oh, maybe I'm confusing
because there were so few scenes between two women, and they were acting partners, and they decided to write themselves something.
Story.
And
it became a movie.
It became a movie. And a wonderful movie. I know we're not reviewing it now, but if you haven't seen Jessica Stein,
if anybody wants the perk for kissing Jessica Stein, I'd love to do a lesbian movie called about it. I know that the ending should have made us not like it, but not at all.
It doesn't.
But that... We'll talk about it
when neither here nor there. Sorry, right now we're before you know it.
Before you know it. So to me, this is one of those. These two women did everything. They directed, they produced, they starred, they wrote everything, and I just love that. And it's all about the two of them. They're sisters. One of them has a daughter, Una Yaffe, played by Una Yaffe. Mandy Patinkin is their father. They have a local theater in the Village in New York.
They live above it.
Right.
They own the building.
Right. And he is a writer, I guess a very celebrated writer. And it's the family business. And it's the family business.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the family business. They all do it together. And
she's the stage manager. The other sister's an actress.
Right.
Yeah.
And at some point, they find out, the sisters find out that the mother that they thought was dead, Judith Light, was actually very much alive and starring on a soap opera. And so they go to find her. And that is the story. It is one of the most original things I've ever seen. It's unlike anything
charming.
else.
It's so funny.
It's very specific. It's written very well. It's acted very well.
It's very New Yorky.
It's a kind of a family drama.
And if you're a soap opera fan, you'll really enjoy the parts when Judith comes into. And of course, anything Judith does is fantastic.
Yeah. I just there was something. It was a slice of life, a very sweet. Specific story, so sweet, and I liked it so much.
It made us feel good.
Yeah.
It made us feel good, and not a lot is making us feel good these days.
Exactly.
And especially we tend towards very dark drama.
Yeah.
We just like to be saturated with misery when we watch things. I just don't know what it is. We're not those kind of people, Harge. But
every now and then I come across a lighter movie or a comedy or a romantic comedy, dare I say, even sometimes. And sometimes that's exactly what one person, what needs. And that's one of them.
Last night, also, I just did not want to watch One Moment of Misery.
Yeah.
We did, I think.
Our tolerance for these things, the more we watch it around us on the news, we just need something to really be more kind of escapist. Mm-hmm. And I think that's perfectly fine. And so this is one of those.
This is one of those.
Before you know it. It's on Showtime now, and really just go and give yourself an hour and a half of just kind of something nice.
Something interesting and fun.
On the flip side of that, something that's not fun but is important. This is a new documentary. It's called Wake Up, Stories from the Frontline of Suicide Prevention. And this is interesting. It is part of a We Are One, a global film festival. And I don't know if they were intentionally going to have an actual festival, but right now it's all programming.
All
right, and it's screened globally on YouTube at no cost between May 29th and June 7th. Now, this movie premiered June 4th. I find it hard to believe that they'll take it off
of June 7th. I mean, you must still be going to be able to find it.
I would think, but just in case, we are going to release this podcast today on Friday rather than wait until tomorrow, so that if you do want to watch it, don't delay, just go and watch it.
Don't tarry.
Yeah. So again, it's called Wake Up, Stories from the Frontline of Suicide Prevention, directed by Nate Townsend and written by him and Chris Jones. And what they did in this movie, they approached the subject of suicide and suicide prevention not as a why do people kill themselves, but as how. And what they did is they focused on 4 different groups that are of higher risk for suicide. Which are American veterans, members of the LGBT community, university students, and gun owners. And they focused on how, for each one of these groups, what can be done to change the how. So, for example, with gun owners, having a gun in the house considerably raises the chances of somebody not only attempting suicide, but succeeding in the attempt.
Yes. They had all kinds of statistics that, you should excuse my expression, will blow your mind about these things.
Very poor choice of words.
I think it's an excellent choice of words.
Anyway, it was a very interesting film. The stories of the people were very touching.
The veterans were very moving, especially. The way we treat our veterans is just shameful.
Yeah, it is. What I found, there were two problems in the movie that I found. The first thing is, at some point, Mimi says, well, what, only white people try to kill themselves?
Especially when the father was in a room at
the university,
university, and it was a filled auditorium. And I didn't see a black face.
It was a fraternity, and there was no diversity.
It wasn't just a fraternity. I think it was a group, many houses from maybe different places.
Anyway, the point is there was zero diversity in the film, and I don't know why they chose to. I mean, I don't know if they weren't aware of it, if they didn't.
That's what I have
occur
a feeling.
To them.
I have a feeling that they chose who they chose, and it didn't. It
didn't register
on them that there was not a black or a brown face
maybe
among them.
Well, I mean, I think that it was very much missing.
Very much. It actually became distracting, especially when I noticed it.
Yeah.
And what was interesting is that I didn't even realize I was noticing it, but while I was watching
something
wrong.
Something
felt very wrong about this representation. And then when I saw that room,
all of a sudden
that's
what I said. What it was.
My God, it's all white people.
Yeah. So that was a big problem. And the other thing is that I found that they touched on a lot of different things, but they didn't go deeply into any of those.
I think the thing that they may have done the best about maybe was the veterans.
The veterans, yes. They definitely, that was the thing that they explored the most, I felt.
The most deeply, yes.
But I think one thing that they did do that is unusual and very much needed and important is that they put faces finally to also the people who attempted suicide but were unsuccessful in the attempt and survived it.
Well, the LGBTQ representative,
right?
She is doing a project.
Right, she goes and she takes portraits of people who attempted suicide and survived.
And because their story.
Right, because what she says is that oftentimes when they talk about suicide survivors, they're talking about the people who are left behind after somebody killed themselves, and they're not talking about the actual suicide survivors, people who survived a suicide attempt. And those are the people.
They get so much knowledge from that.
Right, those are the people who can tell you what goes on in the head of a person who tries to commit suicide and all that. So that is really important, and I was really happy that they featured that.
It was fascinating.
It's worth your time, especially if
you're
something
interested in the subject. If you know someone who you think might be having problems, they talk about that a lot. They talk about, don't be afraid. It's like if you see something, say something.
Yeah.
If you have someone in your family, if you have a friend, if there's someone that you feel might be thinking about suicide, don't be afraid to ask them.
Yes.
They might just be waiting for someone to ask them.
People usually are worried that if they mention the word suicide, they might be putting the idea in somebody's head. And what is important to know is you can't put the idea in somebody's head. It's either there or it's not there. And if it's there, it's important to talk about
it. Right, and that might save some lives.
Right, and this is another thing I want to say about this movie. It's a movie that I feel is more for people, maybe as a society, to understand what we can do about suicide. I don't think that it's very it's not a personal experience. It's not about I didn't feel that the movie provided neither for people who are worried that they have a loved one who might commit suicide or for the people who have suicidal thoughts. I didn't feel that movie particularly addressed their needs. I felt that it talked more as an institutional, like as a society, what we can do.
Yes.
And I missed that, but I guess one movie can't do everything, so that was the focus that they put.
Anyway, it answered some questions and it made you think.
Yeah.
It made you. I think it could open a few people's eyes.
Right.
About the people around them.
So this is Wake Up, Stories from the Frontline of Suicide Prevention. Right now, it should already be on YouTube.
Now here was it's just something that we gobbled it up. and it's not easy to gobble up. It's a new series on 8 episodes on Apple TV Plus now.
Right,
Defending Jacob.
This is something that we should have. It premiered when we were transitioning to Martha's Vineyard and all that stuff, so we didn't actually cover it ahead of time.
Yes.
But so what we chose to do is to cover it at the end, so that we could cover the entire series, because it's a limited series.
Yes, and of course you have to have Apple TV Plus. But
I do want to say, by the way, I don't know if it's still going on, but Apple TV Plus, when the pandemic started happening, they did make some of their content available for free to everybody. So,
and they do have a trial period.
Yes, but even if you at the moment can't afford to have Apple TV Plus, you should still go on the app and see some of that stuff might be available to you.
Yes. This series is created by Mark Baumbach and directed by Morton Tyldum. Based on a novel by William Landay. And by the way, this is why our stats were so bad. They wrote and the same two men wrote and directed all 8 episodes.
And I want to make sure we don't forget, like we did with Regenesis, to actually tell you what the name of this show
said Defending
is.
Jacob.
You did? Okay,
yes,
Defending Jacob.
Defending Jacob. And it stars Chris Evans, Michelle Dockery, Jaden Martell as Jacob, Cherry Jones, Pablo Schreiber, Betty Gabriel, Sakina Joffrey, and J.K. Simmons. It's a sterling cast, and everybody is superb. Absolutely wonderful. Of course, poor Michelle Dockery, as far as I'm concerned, not poor, but she will always be Lady Mary to me, but she's very wonderful.
Once she puts on that American accent, though, I find that she manages
She is wonderful. Chris Evans is superb in this, just superb.
And the kid.
The kid is wonderful. Cherry Jones. Now, the interesting thing about Cherry Jones is her character is a lesbian. She says one line, something, oh, my wife did so. That's it. That's all they make of it. The end. Off we
because
go.
She doesn't really have a personal story. She's the lawyer.
She's his attorney. Jacob's attorney.
She's excellent.
Oh, she's wonderful.
But
she's always wonderful. But I loved her in this. She's a rock.
She's warm. But she's yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But what I really
who they needed.
I really love that we've come to the point where they're just sitting there talking, and she just mentioned as an offhand remark, "My wife," blah blah blah. Moving on.
Yes.
Nothing to it whatsoever.
So this is what it's about. It's from a book, and it's based on a 2012 New York Times best-selling novel of the same name by William Landay. And an assistant DA's world, who is Chris Evans, is completely turned upside down, his and his family, when his son, who's 14 years old, gets charged with the murder of a classmate. And it's just amazing how people's minds work, how things get out of hand. It's a very well written script. You just don't know. Just as you think something is one way, something happens and you think it's another way. And just when you think it's that way, something happens and then you think it's this. And it doesn't ever stop turning and twisting.
At the same time, it's really a lot about not even so much about the mystery. I mean, it is a lot about the mystery, but a lot of it is also about the experience that this family goes through.
What they go through as a family, their inner turmoil.
Guilty until proven innocent.
Guilty until proven innocent is really something that we suffer from, especially, I think, in this country, and the people who turn on them, the people who don't turn on them.
And even just what's going on, each of them in their own psyche. I mean, as parents, to not know if you can believe your son, not questioning your son's moral
core,
his psyche,
sort of lack of empathy, maybe.
I mean, all of a sudden, everything looks different, and it's all about perspective. Now, when you look at it from this angle, it's a lot of psychological turmoil.
And there's something in Chris Evans' past that is a very interesting mitigating fact, and a lot turns on that.
It's a very
Pablo Schreiber is, as usual, repellent, but he's a very good actor.
He's a very good repellent.
He always plays a snake. He always plays a weasel.
Yeah.
He's just a hideous person, but he's doing his job. He's just doing it with too much glee, I feel. Yeah. He's the prosecutor, and he was a colleague of Chris Evans.
Anyway, it's really good. It's very dark, though. It's very dark.
It's very dark. It's a little slow in the beginning, but it's so compelling, and it so drags you into it that you really can't stop watching it, even though you feel each time you watch an episode that there's someone is adding weights to the top of your head, and then they're adding another one, and then they're adding
and
another one.
And the whole show also is shot
very darkly. Yeah. They at one point they go to Mexico, and it's like, whoa,
light, let there be light.
Yeah, let there be light.
But it's just really good.
It's really good. I can't recommend it more highly, especially if you like this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I read these books. I watch these shows. These are they're my meat.
Yeah.
And I think if you like these kinds of things, I couldn't recommend this more highly. All the performances are great.
Defending Jacob on Apple TV Plus right now. And I know we went long, so we're gonna stop here. But
Bye.
We're gonna see you. We're gonna see you next week, and hopefully next Saturday we can also do our Instagram Live. So be there Saturday, June 13th at 2 p.m. If you have any questions for us, let us know in advance.
Stay safe.
Stay safe, and we just want to give you all one big hug.
Yes.